You're listening to a Brooklyn Nets episode of the Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the team's latest goings-on as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, Nets fans! Welcome to another Brooklyn Nets episode of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. Basically, not a lot has changed with the Nets. They still seem to be unable to beat good teams. Since I last spoke with you about them, they've lost to the Suns and Bulls. You know what those two teams have in common? They're very good. They're winning more close games than blowouts, which doesn't give me a ton of confidence in them. At the end of the day, if they were really a title threat, they'd beat some of these lesser teams a little easier, right? Don't you think they'd beat the Timberwolves by more than 5? Don't you think they'd beat the Knicks by more than 2? It's tough. It's tough to have a ton of confidence in them. I don't want to sound doom and gloom because the Nets have the best record in the Eastern Conference. They're half a game up on the Bulls. But at the end of the day, the regular season is meaningless. It's all about the playoffs. And when you project what you've seen from the Nets in their first 23 games to what we're going to see in the playoffs, it's not great. Season ends today. They're facing the Celtics in the first round. They'd beat the Celtics. Second round is the Heat. That's a tough matchup for the Nets. Early in the season, the Heat beat the Nets by 13 points. I understand that's one game. They face each other 3 more times this year. But just think about what you've seen from the Heat this year. Jimmy Butler's having a great season. Tyler Hero's having a great season. Bam Adebayo's averaging a double-double. Their defense is absolutely stifling. They'd make the Nets work. At the end of the day, I don't think it's enough to say that Joe Harris coming back will fix the Nets. I mean, granted, they haven't been shooting the ball well recently, but their issues are a little deeper. It's just this inability to beat good teams. At the end of the day, you get the sense that the Nets are just incomplete. Like, it's one thing to be without a guy like Joe Harris. I understand that Joe Harris is arguably their third best player. Some people would put LaMarcus Aldridge ahead of him. Some people would put Patty Mills ahead of him. I don't know where I'd put him. At most 3. I'll say that. So while that's tough, it's not like the Nets were running away with things before he got hurt. You think about those last couple losses against the Suns and Bulls. If Kyrie Irving was with the Nets win those games. They lost by 6 to the Suns and by 4 to the Bulls. I think it's safe to say that Kyrie Irving would make up that deficit pretty easily. Are we any closer to getting a resolution? It doesn't seem it. At the end of the day, we've heard a bunch of people speculating on Kyrie. I don't believe any of it. Just until I hear something from him, I don't know what to believe. I mean, what I can say is this. Bill de Blasio, the outgoing mayor of New York City, decided to leave a nice little parting gift for his constituents. All New Yorkers who work in the city's private sector will now have to be vaccinated against the coronavirus. The city will also require all children between the ages of 5 and 11 to show proof of at least one shot before entering restaurants, theaters, and gyms. That goes into effect a week from tomorrow. Moreover, for people 12 and older, instead of needing 1 dose of the vaccine, you'll now need 2. Presumably, if you got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you'll also need a booster. But don't quote me on that. Does any of that affect Kyrie Irving? The answer is no. I mean, the increase from 1 dose to 2 affects Kyrie, but he doesn't even have 1. So it really doesn't affect him. What it shows, though, is that the hope of New York City amending these mandates seems to be out the door. Now, what's important to note is that Eric Adams, the incoming mayor of New York City, hasn't come out and said he supports this. It's very surprising to me that Bill de Blasio would impose a rule like this with the chance that it gets repealed in less than a month. Then again, if Bill de Blasio had an intelligent thought in his head, it would die of loneliness. Eric Adams does seem to be a little less gung-ho on vaccine mandates. Having said that, though, I don't think this is a good sign for Kyrie playing this year. If you couldn't convince him to get 1 shot, what makes you think he's going to get 2? At the end of the day, the big controversy here is the private sector mandate. That plays into a whole government overreach thing. That gets into crazy politics, and I don't want to get into that. That's the thing that may be amended. The 1 shot to 2, I don't know if that's going anywhere. At the end of the day, it seems like we're at the point where we're less concerned about convincing people to get the first dose of the vaccine than we are the next dose. The battle now is convincing people to get boosters. I mean, I'll tell you, I got my booster. I got my booster a while ago. It was incredibly easy. I had no ill effects. I was fine. But how this pertains to Kyrie is, it just doesn't seem like New York City's gonna let up. You would hope there was a chance that with the new mayor, he'd roll back some of the mandates. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Is it impossible? No. But I definitely wouldn't bet the rent on it. Maybe he'll roll back the private sector one. Because like I said, that's causing a lot of controversy. But the mandate that requires 1 or 2 doses of the vaccine to enter an indoor building in New York City, that doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. At the end of the day, what I'd love is for Kyrie to just come out and say why he's reluctant to get the vaccine. I understand that he views it as his own decision. I've said that this is a public health issue in the past, but honestly, I'm just genuinely curious as to why he won't get it. Is it that he's concerned about his long-term health? Is it that he wants a fully plant-based vaccine? Is it because he believes some weird conspiracy theory? I don't know. All this stuff is out there because he hasn't said anything. And I understand that he doesn't want to amplify that. The thing is, though, by not commenting on it, you're allowing this vacuum to form where you have all these people speculating on why you won't get the vaccine. Is that better? I don't think so. I'd love for Kyrie to sit down with someone in the media and they just have a heart-to-heart about why he won't get the vaccine. Doesn't have to be me. I don't care if it's me. Believe me. I'd love it if it was me, but it doesn't have to be. I'd just love to get to the bottom of this, because Kyrie Irving could really solve a lot of the issues that the Brooklyn Nets are facing right now. And I know that everyone with the team wants him back. Now, you may be thinking, Jacob, you spent the first part of this show talking about people who aren't on the Nets right now. You're right. Let me talk about some people who are on the Nets right now. Namely, Kevin Durant. At the end of the day, I'm a little concerned about KD. And it has nothing to do with his production. Kevin Durant is doing literally everything you could want him to do and then some. I love Kevin Durant. He is every Nets fan's favorite player. He's Kevin Durant. Sometimes you just watch him play and you go, man alive. I cannot believe that this guy plays for my team. The thing is, though, there is a little bit of an issue. He's averaging 36 minutes per game this year. That would be the highest mark of his career since he averaged 38.5 minutes per game in his age 25 season in 13-14. He is averaging the 6th most minutes per game in the NBA. Funnily enough, he's only 23rd in total minutes played. Kind of interesting how things like that work out. But it brings up the question, are the Nets pushing it too much? The guy's averaging 36 minutes per game. To put that in perspective, that's 3 whole quarters. Basketball is an incredibly demanding sport. You are running up and down the court on every possession. You can't take any plays off. And at the end of the day, this guy's 33 years old and isn't that far removed from a devastating Achilles injury and a year where he only played 35 games. Now, Durant has said he doesn't want his minutes taken away. He's saying basically that he wants to hoop. It's just that simple. The thing is, though, like I said, the regular season is, in essence, meaningless. You'd love the top seed, but even if the Nets have the 8th seed, and they have to go through the play-in tournament to get in the playoffs, if they win the title, who cares? It's title or bust. It's not 1 seed or bust. You don't want to be in a situation where you're pushing Durant and you're pushing Durant and you're pushing Durant to the point where either he gets hurt again or he has nothing left in the tank come the playoffs. Now, Steve Nash has basically said, what am I supposed to do? If it's a close game, I have to play him. And he's right. He's 100% right. I really don't have the answer to this problem. I wish I did, but I don't. Steve Nash is right to play Kevin Durant a lot. And sitting out 1 game of a back-to-back, I've got to be honest with you, I'm not crazy about, because you still need to win that game. I mean, James Harden is in this category too. He's played every game this year. He's averaging 35.7 minutes per game this year. You don't want to be in a situation where you've played these guys a ton. You're in the playoffs, you have a high seed, but once the playoffs start, these guys look dead to the world. I mean, we're seeing that on some of these back-to-backs. At the end of the back-to-backs, these guys just fade. And they look dreadful. I just fear that if you keep your foot on the gas like this, you're going to run these guys into the ground by April. Do I have a fix? No. The only fix would be win more blowout games, but that's easier said than done. Sitting in back-to-backs is a temporary fix. An injury would really set the Nets back and would bring up more questions than it answers. There's no easy answer here. I wish I had the fix for you, but I don't. It is something to be mindful of, though, as the season progresses. Speaking of James Harden, a lot is being made of his step back this year. Just to give you a point of reference, last year for the Rockets and Nets, he shot 46.6% from the field, 36.2% from beyond the arc and averaged 24.6 points per game. This year, he is shooting 40.3% from the field, 34.7% from beyond the arc, and he is averaging 20.6 points per game. He has taken a step back. And there are people that are a little concerned about this. The thing is, though, and this is the fallacy that people fall into, is he taking a step back? Yes, but he's still great. Think about it like this. If I told you that you could get a guy who's averaging over 20 points per game, shooting over 40% from the field, just under 35% from beyond the arc, and is hitting 88.5% of his free throws, would you take him? Your answer better be yes. There's no question that Harden doesn't look like the back-to-back-to-back scoring champion that he is. But he's still producing. He's putting up near triple-doubles every night. He's playing good defense. Is he playing up to the level that you're used to James Harden playing at? The answer is no. But he's still really, 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 really good. Here's the thing. I feel like Harden is getting in his own head a lot. Whether it's not being able to get to the free throw line, or looking to pass too much, trying to force the issue too much. He just needs to simplify things. If I could talk to James Harden directly, I'd say this. Bro, you're James Harden. You're one of the greatest players in NBA history. You are a future Hall of Famer. You know how to score. You know how to pass. Don't listen to any of these outside influences trying to tell you what to do. You have a God-given ability to play basketball at a level that very few others can. I mean, at the end of the day, there are very few people that can score and pass like Harden. Just keep it simple. Focus on the step-back threes. Stick to trying to finish inside and drawing contact. You know what to do. You don't need anyone telling you what to do. He just needs to keep it simple. He needs to get out of his own way. You see the talent that's there. Okay, the notion that James Harden is a shell of his former self right now is nonsense. Did he have a bad game against the Bulls? The answer is yes. Did he have a bad game against the Suns? The answer is yes. But in between those games, he nearly had 2 triple-doubles. He is still a great player. I still want him back on the Nets desperately. If he was to sign a max contract tomorrow, I'd be doing backflips. I really don't have a ton of issues with James Harden. I just want him to focus on what he does best and not let anyone try to change him. Regular episodes of The Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. Next week I'll be in Florida, so no shows. The night of December 20th, you're going to get a New York Islanders show. A week after that, you're going to get a Brooklyn Nets show. There may be some other days off in those weeks, but I'll let you know as they get closer. Until next time, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.